Okay, go.
So, it's March the 7th, 2018. Quite a number of years since I was born in Belleville, Ontario. Lived in Trenton for 5 years or so till we moved to Belleville. Exact address is 43 East Myra Street. And lived there for quite a number of years till I got married. Now you wanted to know, Anthony, my dear grandson, and I'm sure my son David and the other children that are his offspring, about my past youth. So I believe it was 1941. The war had just broken out between the United States and Japan after the attack on Pearl Harbor. But the Canadian forces didn't enter into the war that late. They fought alongside the British, who were fighting in Europe, where the Nazis had conquered most of Europe, other than, of course, the countries that remained neutral. So I was, I think, 6 years old, and I was going to public school. That school has now been demolished, and I believe an A&P store now stands on that site. And it was about close to 2 miles that I walked every day, including the hour and a half that I went back home for lunch, because there was no lunch counters, no cafeterias. I was a scrawny kid, and my recall of the war years, that my parents were issued ration stamps because everything was rationed for the sake of providing the military with the essentials that they needed, such as sugar, butter, dairy products, meat, all the essentials. And that my mother, Lily, who's now since deceased, she was issued a ration card, and also my late father Jake was issued a ration card for gasoline, because that was rationed as well, which means there's only a limited amount of food or essentials that the average citizen could have. So going back and forth to school, it was hard. I was a scrawny kid. Wintertime became a real chore for my mother, because I insisted on wearing high-top boots that she had to put daubing on every day to secure the boots against being penetrated by water. And so it was difficult. As I said, I was a scrawny kid. My blood type is AO negative, and I had to have, in the early years, transfusions. Had to travel all the way to Toronto by train, because the roads aren't what you see them today, and went to was called Sick Children's Hospital, something like that back in the day. So experiencing World War II was rather unique for me, living close to the RCF base in Trenton, which is still in existence today. It was a training base for all the British Commonwealth. And so additionally to seeing aircraft flying overhead all the time, and training aircraft, the Harvards, I believe they were called. I still do have some pictures of them, which I'll show you at a later time. And a lot of the airmen and airwomen, yes, there were women in the forces then, were Jewish, and they were invited to come into the Belleville community, which had a population of 65 families, and the ladies' auxiliary would get together and make chickens and all the other good things that Jewish people like. And I think that I have pictures still of some of the gathering of the Air Force people in the basement of the synagogue, which was at one time the only synagogue in Belleville, and there still is only one synagogue. That was on Pinnacle Street, and now the Canadian Legion tore it down, and they use it as another facility. So as the years went on, I get to be close to bar mitzvah age, and I think you know what that is when a child reaches 13 and the male end of things, that we go to classes to become bar mitzvah, to be counted in as a quorum, they call it quorum, a minyan is the Jewish word, so that we can gather and pray to God and celebrate all the festivals such as the Jewish New Year's, Hanukkah, Purim, all those lovely holidays that I remember, not quite so fondly because everything was in Hebrew, there was virtually no English, not like today where there's Reform synagogues, which we belong to in Toronto, and there's 50-50 English and Hebrew. Now, getting back to me in school, I kind of loved school. I wasn't what you call a scholar or really good in school as you are, Anthony, or some of your aunts and your other relatives. Your dad, Nigel, he dropped out of school and then went back to school and is enjoying life as a father and parenthood. But getting again back to me, I do have a tendency to rove. As I said, I liked certain aspects of school. I was actually good in math and English and art. I loved art, loved drawing. And through the war years, I drew a lot of pictures of aircraft, enemy aircraft being shot down by Canadian aircraft or British aircraft. And I like to draw speeding cars. And so sometimes the teacher would say to me, "Are you studying or are you drawing?" And as the years evolved, getting on to grade 8, I passed and went into Belleville Collegiate Institute and Vocational School. That school has now been torn down as well. I do have a few pictures of that school. And getting back to the war years, certain things that we were asked to participate in, it was voluntary, is to buy what they called savings stamps, not savings bonds. Parents would buy savings bonds and to help the war effort. And kids, I think it was for a quarter, I don't exactly remember, would buy these saving stamp books, Kill Tojo, Kill Hirohito, Kill Mussolini, Kill Hitler, and all the leading members of the various axes, the enemy, and to help the war effort. We also supplied canned goods to the military in the form of what they called ditty bags. I have no idea what that meant, but we would supply canned goods or so every month to be shipped overseas to the military to help sustain their diets. And oh yes, what else? A rather unique thing, of course, the naval aspect and the military aspect, where they were flying either on the ocean or flying over the ocean, were life preservers, and the life preservers were stuffed with kapok, which comes from milkweed, which grew in lavish quantities right beside our school, King George School, King George Public School. So we would collect that and send it to the military to be used in life preservers. Getting into high school, of course the war had ended in 1945. There were other wars going on at that time in Greece and in Korea, as we know it today. And although we never participated as we did, in World War II, we were very aware of what was happening in other areas of the world. And in high school, grade 9, 10, I did okay, although I didn't do well in algebra, so I had to repeat algebra. I know this, I'm getting away from the war years, but I'm telling you what had evolved after the war years, and I became bar mitzvah, and I didn't study Hebrew much after that. I was free at last on studying in Hebrew. I regret that because I could have used Hebrew in university as a credit. So I don't think I've left anything out of my early years. Well, let's see. Yes, I did. I was never good in sports. I loved playing catch with some of my boyfriends. We had a huge backyard. I think it was 100 feet deep and backed onto the Moira River. And my dad always had a nice rock garden, flowers and whatnot. And as I reached a certain age, it was my job to tend the rock garden and cut the grass and cut the hedges, which seemed to be miles long. And yes, before the power mowers came into being, I had to cut it with a hand mower, and it seemed forever to do it. And yes, getting back a little bit to the war years, there wasn't a candy that we have today in large supplies, very limited. I do remember stopping by Coulter's Variety and Hardware Store, which was across from the King George High School. I also remember some very odd things that we did as kids. Sometimes I was very naughty. I was not the leader of being naughty, but we let the air out of tires, whether it was Halloween or car tires, or we'd throw rocks at different homes. Not very nice. I was not a very nice kid growing up in that respect. I didn't play any sports other than playing catch, and I didn't play any sports till I got to high school in my repeated year of my grade or fifth year of high school. I repeated certain subjects, and there was a doctor's son. I remember him very well, Joseph Trudeau. And no relation to President Trudeau, I don't think. Anyway, played football and floor hockey, got banged around a lot, and still suffer from a bad leg. So that tells you a little bit about my athletic life. I liked art, as I said. I was in the art club, and we did all the artwork for the various dances and so forth. So what did I want to be growing up? I wanted to be a lawyer, and I found that after I dropped certain subjects out of high school, in the high school curriculum at least, that I was only would be accepted in McMaster University in Hamilton, and that didn't really turn me on. But anyway, I didn't manage to finish off my fifth year in high school totally. So I opted to go to Ryerson College of Studies of General Arts, which is now a university, or college at least. And I was in a course called Retail and Business Marketing. And I ended up in the ladies' wear business because I had some money set aside, and I worked along with my brother, mother, and father for quite a number of years until I decided that I was, through one thing and another, for financial reasons, I decided to go into the real estate business, which I remained in the real estate business from 1971 to this March the 31st of this year, where I returned my license to the ministry, as I'd had enough of managing. I did mostly managing. I sold in my early years in real estate from 71 to 74, 75. And then I opted to go into training, and I was branch manager of 13 offices at one time for a company called W. Frank Real Estate. They're long out of business. To bring you up to date, I was with the Remax franchise from 1992 to most recently in 2018, where I was assisting in training and managing at a Remax franchise called Remax Premier. So that brings you up to date. I guess that gives you a good insight of where I was and what I didn't understand about school. And this is what I keep impressing you, Anthony, is that school is like work. Work gives you certain assignments to do, and you are excelling at that. And we are so proud of you, that your achievements in music and in math and in writing and also in your reading. You do a lot more. You do a lot of reading. That's one of the things that you and I had in common growing up. I love to read, and I wish you all the best in your future years in being the scholar that I hope that you're going to continue to be. And oh yes, P.S. I have those books for you that Paul will bring back to you when he sees you on Friday, this Friday next. Okay, love you. Bye for now.